You are listening to Beyond the Verse, a Star Citizen podcast. A show dedicated to Cloud Imperium Games, Star Citizen, and Squadron 42. Whether you fight, explore, unite, and or trade, we bring you news, updates, interviews, reviews, and analysis. So sit back, relax, grab yourself a pour of Radegast, and join us as we go Beyond the Verse.
Launch sequence activated.
Hello, friends, and welcome to Beyond the Verse, Star Citizen podcast. I'm your host, Sulyce. This is episode 76. We're calling For the Love of the Game. And I think I need to preface this episode with a few things. Right, number one, I am putting an explicit filter on this show, so be mindful of where you listen to this podcast or watch this on YouTube. I normally try to police myself and make sure everything is more protected, is more, I guess, professional. But for this episode, I'm just going to take all the filters off. I want to react freely, and it's not all negative. I want to react freely. I want to put my true opinions out there. It's going to be a different type of podcast. One, there hasn't been a lot of intel released this past week. Star Citizen is in hiatus as they get ready for CitizenCon here in 3 weeks, 21 days from the time of recording this. So there's a few things that I just want to dive into. So we're going to go through my impressions of the current state of Star Citizen. We're wrapping up Pirate Week and Blockade Runner with a couple of impressions there. Last night, Soul Provision went in, attempted Blockade Runner again, went into Arena Commander and did Pirate Swarms, so some feedback there. Patch 324.2 in Evocati, super exciting, but probably is what's driving the mood of this podcast, so I'll get into that here in a second. Server meshing updates, a Galactapedia update, and more. And I realized I misspelled Galactapedia on on my tweet that I always send out for this. So I hope this finds everybody well. First off, I always look back in the last 7 days and I try to catch everybody up, put a little personal flair to this podcast, and it's been quite a week. At the beginning of the week, I had to travel from Austin, Texas up to Dallas, Texas. I spoke on behalf of Amazon Business at a major convention of about 1,700 people. Very nerve-wracking. I don't mind public speaking. I really don't. But when you're speaking on behalf of such a major company, there's a different level of making sure you say the right thing and deliver the right message and have a proper call to action. And so it's not just talking in front of people. I don't care about that. I truly don't. It's the just making sure your T's are crossed and your I's are dotted. So that's been fun. That's been Monday through Wednesday. Man, but it hasn't stopped. My daughter has a dance performance at she's 5 years old, by the way, has a dance performance at a high school football game this afternoon. They have a run contest at school that after I'm done recording, I'm going to go watch my little ones run. What is it? Saturday, we've got a concert that I'm pulling a security detail for, something I do in real life, executive protective service. So I'm doing that on Saturday. I'm coaching my son's first baseball game on Sunday, which is nerve-wracking because it's coach pitch and I don't have an assistant coach to rely on. So I'm going to be pitching to a bunch of 8-year-olds, hopefully not hitting them because that'll ruin the game of baseball for them. But just so much, guys, so much. And I have not, other than last night with Org Night, I have not been able to get in game and play. So just full transparency there. No, I'm not Evocati. So my feedback for patch 324.2 being in Evocati, it's not about me being in it, reactions to it, it's nothing about that. I have not been able to get in game and play much. So I don't know. I don't know where I want to start with this. Again, there is structure to this podcast. If this is your first time listening, bear with me. I've had 75 other episodes and I'm very meticulous with like the order of events and the order of what I speak in. But for this episode, I think I need to start with like a general response, and then we will go through from the community segment, and we'll go through all the things that happened this past week. But let's actually start with the patch 324.2 in Evocati. So here's the deal. For the last 8 years, and you've heard this from me many times, for the past 8 years, I've been doing content creation. For the most part on a team. And again, I don't want to belabor that conversation, you know that history. But on a team, and I've been involved with that for such a long time. And I've been exposed to like the dark underbelly of content creators. And again, the good and the bad, right? And for the most part, it's good. But there is a toxic, I'm gonna say underbelly again, of content creator, let's say behavior, that really tears at the foundation or the fundamentals of who I am as a human being, right? The self-serving, the likes and attention, the sacrifice of integrity in order to get those 10 extra clicks, right? To get that one extra follow. It's very, it just kills me. In the military, I was an officer. I did the conventional warfare. I went into special forces. I have that background as well. I was always surrounded by humble leaders, always, who just did not really care about raising themselves up. In the SF, we don't put badges on our uniforms. We don't. Our entire left section of our chest, which would normally be covered with 5-6 different skill badges, we don't put a damn thing on our uniform. Why? Because it's not about us. It's about the unit, right? It's about who we're with. It's about the group that we're in. And I don't want to get all preachy here, but when I create content, when I create communities, I always, and go back to March 2023 if you want to hold me accountable, every single time I have celebrated, I've made it about you. This is your community. I just so happen to start the ball rolling. I just so happen to maybe, started the train and you're on the train track, but you're driving it from here. These numbers, these performance metrics that I keep highlighting, it's always about you. And so when I see content creators kind of say, fuck that, I'm gonna do whatever the hell I want to do. It's about me. It's angry, emotional. I'm gonna get likes and attention because it's a shock value. It exhausts me, and it's not the kind of community or culture that I necessarily want to be a part of. And here's the solution. It's super easy. Don't follow them. Like, I'm not necessarily complaining about they exist. It's just, that is my mindset. So here's the story. Here's the background. So on Discord, I have a leaks channel, right? Where if you come across a leak, I don't care. Here's a safe place for it. But you have to opt in. It's not forced. It's not like if you're part of sole provision that you have access to this leaked information. So nothing's going to be spoiled unless you choose to go in and spoil it. I also have a standard in that channel that if it's something like super egregious, that you put like the censorship on it, right? It's like you bracket your message in the vertical bars, right? And that makes it where you have to click on it to reveal it. So I'm very meticulous about that. It exists. I'm okay with it because some leaks are good, build type, and sometimes, I don't know, it's CIG themselves that are leaking their own information, but by accident, right? So there's a place for it. That's not what this is about. The NDA, right, the non-disclosure agreement that Evocati testers have to, I actually don't even know if they have to sign it, but they agree to it, they click on something, I'm 100% sure. It explicitly says that talking about it's fine. Like, if I were to talk about it on this podcast, we'd be fine. But any sharing of media, in fact, let me just share my screen. Okay. The current build is under NDA. Talking about features and testing is allowed, but no sharing of game video screenshots, audio files, or accounts outside of Evocati. It's very explicit. It's very explicit. So my happy ass is on YouTube, just searching around Star Citizen content because I want to immerse myself and entrench myself in what's happening in the game that I love. And I come across a freaking video of somebody who was able to call upon the Zeus. And they had walkthroughs of 2 of the versions of the Zeuses. I don't know if I care so much if there's punitive action. Like I would love to see Evocati or CIG say, all right, you're no longer part of Evocati. I think banning is like too much. Like let's not get crazy with it. But maintaining or continuing in Evocati, that should be revoked immediately. But for all of the hundreds, perhaps maybe even thousands of people that just got it ruined, that shock value, the good shock value of what we have when patches release, we can sit here and bitch all day long about whether or not it's playable or if it's the right kind of playable to be called, out of alpha or ready for 4.0 or whatever. That is entirely debatable and up for debate. But there's always this amazing shock value when 324, 323 drops and you're in it for the first time and you're seeing these vehicles for the first time. That just got ruined for so many people. I think that is where I draw the line. So I made a comment on Twitter. I said, hey, have some integrity. Don't sacrifice your integrity for likes and attention. Don't do it. You're not supposed to create content based off of Evocati. Just wait until the time is right, and then the moment it hits P2, release your content. By all means, make it competitive. You're supposed to be competing with other content creators. That's the whole thing, right? You're trying to be the best of the best. That's fine. Go do it. Do your thing. But wait to do it. And so I put that post, and it's garnered a lot of response, over 4,000 impressions. It's gotten a lot of reposts, a lot of quotes, obviously. It's generated a lot of conversation, but of course that brings in white knighting, you're sticking up for CIG. Look, and this is why I titled this episode what I did, for the love of the game. I love my son and daughter so much that I discipline them. I'm going to say that again. I love my kids. I love my family so much that I criticize and I try to build them more than I spend time having fun. I'm always critiquing them in a loving way, of course. I'm not an asshole. But I'm always telling my son, chew with his mouth closed and, cut before you bite. And yes, sir, yes, ma'am. And I'm always on top of that shit. I think you can love a game. Actually, I know you should. If you love a game, you should also see it through through a lens of criticism as well. And CIG knows this. They're a big boy, big girl company, right? If you love something, you're also going to critique it. So for the love of the game, I celebrate what I love about it, and I'm going to critique what I hate about it. And that's okay. I hope that at least puts some genuine aspects of my content out there. Now, I am central. I consider myself a centrist, leaning on the side of white knighting, because why play a game I freaking hate? Why? So I will always lean towards positive. But I hope in the last 76 episodes, I hope that you've heard maybe fair and balanced. I hope that you've heard that I'll critique when things are broken. Okay. I'm going to kind of segue away from, that was just the introduction, damn it. Like that was, we got some work to do in the next couple of minutes. But as always, the title of my podcasts are kind of, it's thematic throughout the entire episode. It's not like it's my monologue. So for the love of the game is going to permeate through the rest of the segments. I'm going to talk about Pirate Week, what I loved and what I hated about it, Blockade Runner, what I love and I hate about it, etc. And you're going to hear that theme. hopefully carry out through the rest of the podcast. So thanks for sticking with me. It's been 10 minutes of a little bit of a venting session, but I think it's necessary. So here we go.
Incoming message.
Whew, okay, this is going to be a fun episode. At the end of every episode, I ask on Spotify a poll, and obviously the comments section is open for your feedback, but I ask the question, is the future of engineering too much for multi-crew gameplay? And I loved the breadth of responses here. So 13 votes, and it was spread out across 4 out of the 5 options to choose from. So in first place, cautious where CIG goes. So maybe that's cautiously optimistic or just unsure. 38.5%. In second place, I went more engineering at 30.8%. Then we had looks about right, 23.1%, and about 7.7% that it might be too much. 0 said it overcomplicates the game. So it's funny. I will say things on a podcast, and my org will come back and say, man, Sulyce feels this way about something. And what's interesting is I'm oftentimes what I say what I dislike. Like, for instance, Drake. And we said this last night in org night. Drake, I will fly Drakes all day long. The Vulture is amazing. Unfortunately, the Cutter is like your best starter ship, like, hands down. The Corsair is just an all-around great solo, flyable ship. Drake is a everyday, like, I enjoy flying Drake. Just as a brand, as a company, as 2954, it's so beneath what I would expect. And then get role playing inside of the game. It's so beneath what I think the technology should be in the future. If you're able to afford a quantum drive and a jump drive and all the things that go into a Corsair, you should probably be able to afford a couple of panels to cover up your damn wires. Is that fair? Is that fair? Not everything has to look like Origin tracking, but goodness, man. It looks cheap. Flies awesome. Looks cheap. Okay, anyways, this is one of those examples where I said, engineering could possibly complicate the game. I said so on Space Tomatoes podcast, where I'm concerned about this main character syndrome, right? We talked about that before. I'm actually one of the people who wants to be just a crew member, which is funny because I'm the CEO, I'm the owner of Sole Provision, but there's something that's fun about, man, just not having a care in the world. Like, I might be the commander of our Javelin, but anytime we leave the Javelin to do literally anything else, put me on a damn turret. Put me on a turret. I just want to chill and kill things. Chill and kill, right? Chill and kill. So I'm right where maybe like looks about right, cautious where CIG goes. I'm like right in that bucket, right in the middle, where I don't want it to be over like cumbersome. I don't want it to completely take away, but it sounds like they're on the right track. I think the Astropub also shares that sentiment as well. Going to the comments section. We have 5 comments to get through. And again, this is a very light week of content, so I'm actually going to take my time through these. But we'll be done in the next probably 30 minutes. So let's go. Call Me Teach. Call Me Teach says, I feel like you're finally seeing what people have been waiting for in this game for years. I know people have it in their heads that everyone wants to be a hero. Here we go. Or a main character, but the community of people who would rather be the Chewie to your Han is enormous, or a Scotty to your Kirk. 100%. Actually, I think I literally just said that. 100% agree with you. I'm actually one of those people who wants to be Chewie. Full agreement. And I'm surprised, like, everybody on that Space Tomato, Morphologist, Void Dude, and Astropub podcast, they all said they didn't want to be, the commander. So it's actually kind of surprising, but I love that about our community, kind of the servant leadership approach. Love it. All right, so Bravo 1 Bravo1 says, C2 as defense is honestly interesting. Mostly have to pick your battles with it. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. Laughing my ass off. If I can tuck tail and get out of the area, I will, but if there's no choice, I try to take the fight slow. If there's more than one ship, start with taking out the target that is high priority, that can take the easier and work my way to others. Yep. We talked about last episode, we talked about soloing the C2 as like an everyday ship, the C2. And I said it was way too much ship and don't know how you would solo. So that's a response to that comment. That's funny. You know, I actually, if I'm not doing bounty hunting, I love soloing with the Hammerhead. Completely worthless if you start getting into combat. Like, there's no way you're going to defend yourself in a Hammerhead in a solo situation. But it is one of my favorite ships to roleplay. I love Aegis. I love their design. I love, like, it actually feels like a real life, freighter. So I'm excited about where Aegis is going. But I'm in the same kind of boat there. I like having a lot of ship. I like having the Hammerhead for sure. All right, Sean writes, I agree with Call Me Teach. I think that the simple but challenging role of being a co-pilot or crew member and the way that you become a part of something bigger is a play style that a lot of people are willingly taking, or that will willingly take. Agree 100%. And we have an Isaac Randolph writes, love the podcast. Always like listening while I'm at work to pass the time. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to say that. Hopefully this is not so much of a bummer episode for you, or at least the first part wasn't so much of a bummer episode. Just trying to be authentic for this episode. So tell me how I'm doing. Tell me if I'm too much. And then we have Anna says, I agree with Isaac. I also had this long message I was going to send, but it didn't. So I'm going to have to write another one. By all means. You could always write longer messages in email, which I know you know. You've emailed me enough to know. So that's contact@beyondtheversehq.com. So feel free to write those as well. But yeah, I didn't know if I wanted to say something about it today or maybe next episode, but last night I hit 2,000 followers on Twitter. And I don't know, that's a huge milestone. I've been going at this since March of 2023, so this is a year and a half. And it seems like every quarter, I get about 500 followers on Twitter. And so that's, of course, that's you, right? That's you joining. That's you're the one clicking following. I'm talking into a mic and try my best to look pretty on a camera. But this is about you and your community, right? So thank you so much for being a part of that, taking time out of your day to say loving the podcast, where you listen to it. I love hearing about where and how you listen to this podcast. I told the story a million times, but I got into podcasts for games when I would travel from Austin, Texas to Lubbock, Texas. That's like a 6-hour drive. And that's how I got into everything, right? The Lore Seekers. That's how I got into them. I would love to hear how you listen when you listen. So thank you for that. Thank you for sharing. Okay, I think we're finally getting into This Week in Star Citizen. So let me share my screen for those of you on YouTube. Straight to the article. Let's just read this and we'll go through it. Hello, everyone. Last week, we kicked off Pirate Week with a treasure trove of exciting activities. Dive into deciphering a treasure map to claim a shiny challenge coin. Enter our new community contest. Show us your plunder and check out the latest skull-clad paints. Dive into our newest global event, Blockade Runner, running until September 30th. That's 3 days from now. So you have 3 more days to get into Blockade Runner. Join the CDF in breaking outlaw blockades and liberating low orbit stations, or take a walk on the dark side to pocket some credits through less than lawful means. We're aware of occasional cargo spawning issues, yes, and are actively working on a fix. We appreciate your feedback and issue council reports, and we'll keep you updated. We hope you enjoyed the latest episode of Inside Star Citizen, which highlighted engineering gameplay on the horizon and the next big leap in multi-crew gameplay. As our teams gear up for CitizenCon, Inside Star Citizen and Star Citizen Live will take a brief hiatus. But don't worry, we'll be back with fresh content after the event. That's, at the time of writing this, 26 days away. At the time of this podcast, 21 days away. We look forward to seeing you in Manchester and or on Twitch. And real quick, since we're already kind of having this like I love you, love me podcast kind of theme, where in the flying hell is the agenda for CitizenCon? Where is it? I don't necessarily need to know because I'm not going to Manchester this year. But I don't know. I think we had something, within the 3 weeks leading up to last year, didn't we? I actually don't know when we got it, but I felt like we had more of a heads up. The map of the venue, where certain things were going to be. Different subjects, like day 1 was going to be XYZ, right? Day 2 was going to be ABC. Nothing has been released as far as agenda. And I don't necessarily blame CIG. I mean, the more shit you put out there, the more content creators are going to fuck with it, right? They're going to like, oh, this means that they're talking about Squadron 42 and look at this dark spot on the map. Maybe that's where they're going to have Pyro 4.0 to play, which is exactly what happened last year. So, I mean, I get the reason why you would want to hold off, 100%. But damn, like if you were going to Manchester and you spent $350 and you've got your plane ticket and you've got your hotel and you're like, your spouse is like, hey honey, what are you going to be doing while you're there? I don't fucking know. I have no idea. I have nothing in front of me that tells me what we're going to be doing. So here's thousands of dollars invested into this trip and you got nothing. Just a digital goodies pack. All right, back to the article. In the meantime, our Chief Technology Officer, Benoit, shared a Spectrum thread recapping our recent server meshing playtests and what's coming next. A huge thank you to everyone who participated in the testing. We will actually read the server meshing update to get into that here in a little bit. All right, we also had a fantastic time at TwitchCon. Let's just keep going. All right, so at the very bottom, this is how little released this week. 3 bullet points. On Tuesday, we had a Galactapedia update. That's it. So Friday, we have the RSI weekly newsletter at some point after this podcast. And then we have a racing event on Saturday. So, yeah, I mean, this isn't going to get any more exciting until CitizenCon. Unless they completely surprise us with 324.2. It was an Evocati, right? We just talked about that. It was an Evocati. So what does that mean between now and CitizenCon? Let me throw out a prediction. This is just my prediction, founded in literally nothing. So don't hold me to this. Actually, hold me to it because that's actually fun. It's one of the reasons why I do what I do. I think we'll get 324.2 before CitizenCon. I think it'll clear the air. It'll allow everybody to focus in on the actual CitizenCon content. So I think 324.2 is within the next 2 weeks. That'll give us a week to play with it before CitizenCon, and then CitizenCon will be about 4.0, and it'll be about Squadron 42. Based off of literally nothing. All right, let's start with small news. So small news first. The RSI Launcher 2.0.5 release notes. Again, I don't know if anybody truly cares. No one jumps onto the Beyond the Verse podcast to hear about a launcher update. But since it happened, let's talk about it. It has a new offline mode. It lets you manually set your download speed. It fixed, 6 issues. Very awesome. It still has some known issues like they're tracking. But the reason why I think this is important, and maybe I've said this before, if not, here you go. CIG, or Star Citizen, is finally becoming 2024 level. That's what we expect out of games in 2024. If you go to other game launchers, Steam, the Battle.net launcher, these are very sophisticated launchers that already have this functionality. So it's more that RSI launchers or the CIG launcher, the Star Citizen experience is finally catching up to where it probably should have been for the last couple years, but now it's relative, right? We saw it with 322's aesthetic update, right, to make everything look like Squadron 42. Basically, that put us on par with other games in 2024, right? A good HUD, good color balance, etc. I feel like these RSI launcher updates are exactly that. It's okay. Hey guys, we're finally fine-tuning the experience of logging in and out and downloading updates. So I think it is a piece of news. Let's move on to something more important. All right, this is going to be a couple minutes worth of the podcast. I think this is huge. So server meshing testing update. If perhaps you don't know what server meshing is, I'm going to dumb it down. I kind of said something about this in the last episode, but just to oversimplify, more people in a server. Is that fair? Like, is that a fair, like, is that a fair summary? It is a major tech advancement. Other games have it. Like, CIG is not the first company to do server meshing, but it's the idea of, it's exactly what it sounds like. You take one server and you can mesh it live with another server, so you can freely go in and out of other servers without any delay or any issues with the game. So let's go to the article. Let's read this. I'm going to read it verbatim, respond accordingly, but I think this is a super important information. And then we'll go into the for the love of the game response at the very end. Here we go. Server meshing testing update. Hi, everyone. I hope you're all having a great week so far. I wanted to take a moment to give a brief update on server meshing and share a bit of recapitulation post-action report for recent playtests, and a glimpse into our intents for the next phases. So I would call this an after-action review. A quick recap, but they want to say recapitulation. A quick recap. Back in March 2024, following server meshing test A, we confirmed a critical design flaw in the network message queue, NMQ, used by game servers and hybrids. The NMQ is responsible for transmitting data over UDP sockets for both reliable and unreliable, eventually consistent, traffic, as well as ensuring the security of this data transmission. All game data, including serialized variables, entity properties, and remote method calls, pass through this message queue. The identified flaw caused issues when processing large amounts of binds and messages, leading to performance problems, causing large bottlenecks in the queue. Its usage of memory bandwidth was also problematic. To address this, the team went into focused development mode to create a replacement, the Replication Message Queue, or RMQ. The RMQ is designed to significantly improve bandwidth efficiency and maintain security for game servers, clients, and replicants. Most importantly, it aims to prevent major networking bottlenecks that players would typically experience as prolonged interaction delays affecting multiple users simultaneously. As previously shared, we introduced the first version of RMQ in early 3.24.0 releases as a canary on selected shards. It's now fully deployed across all 3.24.1 shards. We're closely monitoring RMQ performance in relation to shard age, as we observed in 3.23.1, that as shards age, the number of binds and messages increase significantly. Encouragingly, since implementing the RMQ, we've observed clear improvements in our metrics and performance captures. We're optimistic that these positive trends will persist as shards age, though we'll continue to monitor the situation closely. Server meshing tests. With RMQ in place, along with other hybrid improvements, we have resumed server meshing tests using the current patch codebase at 3.24. Our test objectives are to identify areas needing optimization to achieve low latency replication at scale with the actual game and real players. Pinpoint game features that require adjustment for high player counts. Pinpoint game environments that need adjustments for higher player counts. uncover bugs related to server transition, server recovery, and other quirks introduced by the meshed setup, and confirm changes to improve the game experience at higher player counts from a networking point of view. We are aiming for a rapid iteration cycle to test our corrections and optimizations, ensuring progress at each step without interference from other changes to the game. Our goal is to conduct weekly tests until it is time to rejoin the main development branch for the 4.0 PTU waves. We will only proceed to a tech preview test in each week if we have sufficient changes and improvements validated for you all to play. Our test should mostly follow a given pattern. 1. First, start with a single server setup to validate no new problems. 2. Expand a mid-size configuration, aka 3 servers, 500 players each. 3. Expand to a larger size configuration, aka 6 servers at 1,000 players. And that's not 500 players each. That's 3 servers at 500 players, 6 servers at 1,000 players. And then number 4, reel back to a comfortable player cap and server amount based on performance to leave the test open for a few hours so more players can experiment and we can capture data. In these tests, missions will not be available as the mission system is currently being refactored to be server meshing compatible in 4.0. Several game systems like social are also being adjusted for server meshing, but those changes are not in the technical preview builds, which we aim to isolate for any ongoing development bar networking code. The testing of these systems will resume when 4.0 hits PTU with server meshing available. Meshing Test B post-action report. Meshing Test B was conducted on September 12th and was the first test on RMQ. The results were disappointing and unexpected, but the previously identified bottleneck identified in Test Alpha was confirmed fixed. While interaction delay at scale had improved, allowing us to leave players testing a 4 servers, 350 individual setup, the problem remained. The next performance bottleneck to be solved was identified. Observations. Zoning in and out of times were problematic, with a lot of players stuck loading when a rush of players occurred. Latency and interaction delays made the game unplayable at large player counts. Problem area would also affect game server connections, making the problem worse, but the silver lining, the original problem from NMQ was confirmed fixed through metrics and captures. The test was shut down early. Meshing Test Charlie post-action report. Meshing Test Charlie was conducted on September 19th and included performance optimizations. Test Charlie was the first to use a build with the legacy NMQ system stripped out. This was an important step as RMQ has been designed for greater parallelism. But these optimizations could not be unlocked while we still needed to support NMQ. Test Charlie included the first round of these planned optimizations and significantly improved our ability to scale before the interaction delay grows and the game becomes unplayable. This test also allowed us to start seeing more gameplay-related issues as players spread around the game world and were able to experience a meshed universe. This test was a big step forward. We were able to successfully identify additional issues present, but walked away from this playtest feeling optimistic. Here are the observations. Zoning in and out times were still problematic at higher player counts. Many players have XL hangars, but there aren't enough XL gateways when many players spawn in a short period of time. ATC queue times were too high. Social systems were still tied per game server and not game shard, causing channels to be empty for players in other areas. Player count max look capped at 100 even though the system is not limited. This work will happen 4.0 streams so as not to introduce large changes in tech preview. That was hard to get through. All right. Higher player count and markers are a usability visibility issue and have a performance cost on the client. Bathrooms and new Babbage were clogged, causing massive conch alliances players queued up to wait for their turn. They're marketing it as troll. Like, that's absolutely a joke on their part. That was hilarious. Latency and interaction delays went up in the 1,000 player test, where clear new performance optimization hotspots were found. This is the focus of the work until the next test. A hybrid crash would cause 30K error sporadically in the meshing setup. This is the focus of the work until the next test. And onwards. While these early results are promising steps forward, we are aware that challenges remain. We're committed to tackling each hurdle through rapid iteration, always aiming to improve your gaming experience. To those of you who participate in these tests, your dedication is truly inspiring. Taking time out of your day to come and try out new features and tech, much respect. It's a pleasure and a privilege to progress on this technology together. Your insights and patience are invaluable as we transform our game to be the MMO we want it to be. We're excited about the path ahead and will keep you all updated on our journey. Thank you for being an integral part of this ambitious project with us. With love, CIG. Okay. I participated in the first one, the September 12th one. I was not able to participate in the September 19th one. And the September 12th one was like they said, it was pretty rough. I was able to get in, like, obviously walking around New Babbage, but calling on elevators and getting to your hangar and actually getting off into space, that was damn near impossible. I know some people were able to, but at least the shard that I was on, no one was. So there were times in New Babbage, I would be getting 30, 40 frames per second. And I think that's awesome. That's a great experience. But there's so much other things happening that it was hard to focus on, like FPS is high. Woo. Awesome. 500 people are in the server. Great. But I can't do shit. I can't go anywhere or do anything. So the September 12th one, by all means, I agree with the observations here. The September 19th one, I was unable to be a part of, but I watched the content creators that I follow very closely, and it sounds like that was actually a lot better of an experience. I heard high frame rates. I heard people were able to get up in space. I heard that the numbers were close to 500, 600 pretty consistently. So it's progress within 7 days. Now, here's my for the love of the game response. There's nothing more important. Nothing is more important at this current moment than server meshing. You can slap whatever makeup on a pig you want. You can call it 4.0. You can change 324.2 to a 325. Throw in the Zeus. Hell, throw in the Brawny Merchantman. Throw in whatever the hell you want to throw in. This game is not successful without server meshing. It's not. I mean, you cannot imagine this game 5 or 10 years down the road only having 100 people instance together on a server. It's not when you've got World of Warcraft and Elder Scrolls Online and all these, massively multiplayer online games that are massively multiplayer. You can't call Star Citizen that at 100 people. You can't. So this has to work. Even if server meshing, and this is going to get a lot of people pissed off, even if server meshing is just like turned on and active for Stanton, even though I know the whole purpose is Pyro, being able to mesh, the Pyro server with the Stanton server. But like, even if it just is turned on and it's working fine for Stanton, we need this tech to work. So here's my White Knight approach. My White Knight is like, take your time, let it cook, don't fuck this up. You've got to get this right. It can't be a 320. Was it 320? No, 318. It cannot be a 318. Not at this level, not at this stage in the game. And I think it's different now because we've got eyes like Osmongold on it. We've got Dr. Disrespect on it. They're all responding to the future of gaming video that came out of CitizenCon. Like, we have so much visibility, and we're so close to Squadron 42. We have so much visibility on this. We can't jack this one up. So I love these tests. Please, if you're listening to this podcast and you've never once considered doing a tech preview test, please do it. They need the data. just know that you're not going to enjoy your time. You're literally like, I was in the middle of work and I like turned around, I logged into the game, just let my character sit, and I went back to work. Maybe moved a little bit, maybe, tried to test whether or not an elevator worked, but I was working while I was doing it. So just make it happen for the numbers' sake. They need it. So maybe like the critical side of my for the love of the game. Well, I think I've already said it, actually. Just get it out. I let it cook, make it work. Yep. But if you have to cut shit away, like if you have to, not do pyro until maybe like December, if not Q1 of next year, get this tech right. Here's my critical response. We need the current state of the game to work. I was in Dallas, Texas at the beginning of this week, and people were like, man, my real name's Ash, but like, man, Ash, you're really good at public speaking. Do you practice? I'm like, well, sort of. I do a podcast. And they're like, oh, awesome. Like, what podcast do you do? And I was, hey, there's this game that's been in development for 10 years. Ooh, development for 10 years. Why is a video game being in development for 10 years? And then I'd go into my elevator pitch. Well, this is why, tech issues, we're trying to build something brand new. But then we get into the actual like gameplay, and I'm scared shitless of recommending this game to anybody. As much as I love it, over 5,100 tweets on this game alone in the last year and a half. 76 episodes, the same amount of YouTube videos. I am afraid of recommending this to friends. So they're like, oh, is this game playable? I'm like, how about you just listen to the podcast first? Like, let's start there. Let's start there. But like, we need the game to work. So if we're still in Stanton by the end of CitizenCon, oh man, just make things work. Make cargo hauling work. Like, let me call up cargo on a freight elevator planet side and it have the right amount of boxes for my mission. I don't know. Like, is that so hard? Like, let's get that shit right. But like, if that means cutting back on server meshing, like again throwing in pyro and all that, get server meshing to work, get the current game to work at least as close as you can, and then we can talk about all the other sexy things. But what's the point of server meshing if you don't have pyro? I know. Okay. We started this episode talking about 324.2. I'm not going to get into the content creator bullshit. I already did. I don't want to rehash that. But 324.2 was in Evocati, and the features were not supposed to be. So the Zeus and all that other crap were not supposed to be. This was just for stability. So you're looking at it if you're watching YouTube or watching on Spotify. But here you are. It's literally just the stability playtest. And it was going to run for about 3 hours on the PTU channel for Evocati members. And again, even specifically says this is currently a stability playtest on the new 324.2 branch and not focused on new feature feedback. So what did it have? All right. So we can talk LTP. I don't think anybody really cares about that because it's a test. It's Evocati. You're not going to keep anything anyways. But you start with 15 million UEC. That's a significant amount, right? To go in and get a ship if you need to, or go in and get all the upgrades if you need to. I've never truly cared about how much my starting UEC was. And then your shard player count was only at 100, so capped out at 100. So the current build is under NDA. We already read that sentence. Please monitor ETF testing chat, yada yada. I think we already talked about all this. Note, this patch does not contain all the intended features, which will be added iteratively to the notes as they become available. Additionally, some features may be implemented in a partial state and as such are not ready for testing. When those features reach a playable state, they will be detailed on the notes and added to the testing focus. Please cancel all issues related to those in testing focus and in general gameplay. All right. Sulyce. What the hell is Evocati? It's the alpha to the alpha to the alpha to the pre-test to the alpha. I told you I was going to be a little sharp today. So Evocati, gaming studios have Q&A, right? They have quality assurance testers. And it's a group of people who play the game in a very broken state, or maybe even to finalize, like Squadron 42, they're finalizing the polishing phases with QA testers. You've got your QA testing, but those are like limited. It's headcount that CIG pays for. They're limited at like the breadth of which they can test. So what they wanted to do was create kind of that next level of QA. They're not ready to like publicly release anything into a PTU, a public test universe, but they want like additional people. And I don't know how many are in Evocati. Doesn't really matter, but it is a limited number. And at first, they assigned like the most active members in the issue council. The hours played in testing phases. And so it was rewarded in, I think, the right way, in a merited way. So if you merited being part of this group, great. But here recently, and I truly think this was a horrible idea. And I love Tyler Whitkin. I love the community team. I mean, no offense by this, if y'all are listening. Horrible idea to bring in content creators. It's never a good idea. It didn't work for anything Amazon Game Studios related. It sort of worked for Elder Scrolls Online. We had a couple of good apples, but for the most part, they would run it as well. And then World of Warcraft, bad idea as well. When you bring in content creators who exist for emotions, right? They exist to be like patted and celebrated. You're going to get people taking advantage, right? So Evocati just introduced partnership with some content creators who probably never spent a day in the issue council. And that's where a lot of these issues are kind of coming from, right? These leaks, I'm not saying they're necessarily the ones doing the leaks, but they'll put some feedback in whatever medium, whether it's the issue council or whether it's their Discord. We could talk about pipeline if we wanted to, but those leaks they just come out, right? It's always through like a YouTube video or something nonsensical. But Evocati, I think, got pervaded when they threw in content creators. But it's such a broken experience. It's not the intention of the future of this patch, right? That's not what this is. It's not a preview into what 324.2 is. CIG can let everything else burn, but if they want you in Area 18 to test a certain function with only like 1 or 2 ships, they will set those parameters so, and they will force Evocati to be doing that, because that is what they're trying to test. Whereas in like the general PTU, waves 1 through 3, it's like, okay, well, here's Stanton as you know it with the new features. Shit's still broken, but here's like your general access, right? Evocati is a forced, you're going to test this. This is your experience. And so, I don't know. That's Evocati. If you wanted like very much in a nutshell in my emotional response to what Evocati is nowadays, there's that. I hope that answers some questions for you. But with it going through Evocati, yesterday, it's very feasible that it hits PTU next week and it hits the live PU before CitizenCon. It's very feasible. Okay. We're on the last article. And like I said, our last segment, like I said, this was kind of on the shorter side, not a lot happening, but I hope you're gathering or you're garnering some sort of value out of this different toned podcast. All right, here we go. The last segment, the Galactapedia update. We're not necessarily going to go through each one of these. There's no full-length article. It's just the 20 short-length articles. But every couple of weeks, we have a Galactapedia update. The lore in Star Citizen is a hit or miss. Like, I play because of the lore. My content creator team was the lore seekers. Like, lore is my thing. I don't think it's in a place to really truly dive into. And like I said, I'm going to get into the ship manufacturers. That's going to be between now and the next couple of weeks, because we're not going to have Inside Star Citizen. We're not going to have a lot of content until CitizenCon. So we'll play around with some of this. But I don't know, here's a crack at it. And all this is subject to change. I think that's another thing to consider as well. So because we're in alpha, things have already changed. We have history of that. There's precedent of that. But to dive into the lore background of something like Astro Historian or the Astropub does, like Paul does an amazing job. I highly, highly recommend going to their content. This is all subject to change because it's still in alpha. So here we go. Welcome to September's Galactapedia Update Roundup. This month we explore the moons of the Sol system, meet famed test pilot Michelle Soleno, and take a look at the history of the Rust Society. Join the Spectrum thread for any discussion or feedback. Here we go, the short articles. We have the Rust Society, which is a union of haulers and salvagers. We have Michelle Soleno, founder of the 99th Squadron. Luna, Earth's one and only moon. Phobos. Hold on, I had to do this. I had to jump on my sandbox here. Okay. The sun is not called the sun. It's called Sol. S-O-L. That's why we are in the Sol system. The moon is not called the moon. The moon's name is Luna. So I got into this debate, I don't know, like a month ago. I got into this debate about calling Pyro a sun. Pyro is a sun. It's not the sun. It's not the Milky Way galaxy's like the sun, right? Or the Sol system sun. It is a sun. Suns have different colors. They have different sizes, but Pyro is the name of the sun. You've got like satellites or whatever, they're moons. So you've got a planet like Earth that has the moon called Luna, kind of like how you have the planet Crusader that has moons of Selen and Yella and Daymar, right? I don't know. It's a weird thing. Like, people will argue about the weirdest shit, and I'm not always right, clearly, and I'm very transparent when I'm not right. I hope that's something you can say about me. Livery. I don't know. That's a weird thing to harp on. Moons are rocks that orbit planets. A sun is a star that planets orbit around. Back to the Galactapedia update. Luna, Earth's one and only moon. Phobos, doomed to impact Mars. Deimos, a misshapen rock. The Herschel Belt, named for the person who discovered it. Is that Io or Lo? Volcanically active. I don't know if this is going to help opening it up. Io or Sol 5A. I don't know if that's a L or an I. I think it's Io. Anyways. Europa, covered in streaks. Ganymede, bigger than Mercury. So what's funny is, like, a lot of these names, if you've read or watched The Expanse, right, a lot of these names should like be coming up as familiar to you. Callisto, a seismophobia haven. Titan, shaped by a methane cycle. And I think it's Titan. Titan's a moon of Saturn. Is that right? Titan is a moon of Saturn. Yeah, this is the one that they're saying like has life. I think it's Titan is the moon that might have. Yeah. Here we go. The largest Saturn's moons. Its nitrogen methane atmosphere is denser than that of Earth. Titan is dotted with lakes and rivers of liquid hydrocarbons, and its climate has created surface features such as dunes, seas, and canyons, all shaped by methane cycle rather than water cycle. Yeah, so there's a lot of things coming out from NASA. The JW Webb. I don't know. I forgot what the acronym was, but the new satellite is coming out some really awesome photos of Titan. But I think that's also the one that has such a dense atmosphere that everything is blurry. But they've had to like overlay different views to get a good idea of what was in it. So anyways, Rhea, jagged surface. Tethys, made mostly of water ice. Dione, heavily bombarded. Iapetus, it's a two-tone moon. Miranda, it's topographically dramatic. Ariel, the base of operations of weather scientists. Umbriel seems to have an eye. I don't know what any of this means. You have to open it up and read the article. Titania, the largest of Uranus's moons. Somebody also corrected me on how to say Uranus. It's not Uranus, it's like Uranus. Where did I... Here. You guys are going to make fun of me. How to pronounce Uranus. Here we go. Ready?
Uranus.
Okay, they're saying Uranus. Okay.
Uranus.
How many more times should I play that on podcast?
Uranus.
All right, I'm 10 years old. Then we get the last one, Oberon, coated in dark dust. So there you go. I would love to hear your thoughts on the tone of this podcast. I want to give you a genuine and authentic experience. My reactions to what happens within a week, hopefully like kind of through the emotions. I'm trying to give you the facts, let you decide how you feel on a topic. But sometimes like today, I wanted to take that veil off and just, I don't know, showcase maybe another opinion, maybe one that we're not used, to hearing on social media. But hopefully it wasn't too much. Next week, we'll get into, again, all the news that hopefully happens between now and then. Of course, we will get into the RSI's ship history. So that will absolutely be a thing towards the end of next week's episode. So there you go. If you want to become part of the conversation, you can do so. That's all social media / @BTV_cast. You can email us at contact@beyondtheversehq.com. And this is also over on YouTube, and that's /@, BTV_cast. You can join our in-game organization Soul Provision at www.robertsspaceindustries.com/orgs/provision. I hope this finds everybody well. Until next week, safe travels as you traverse beyond the verse. Take care, everybody.